Lena sat quietly on one of the cold steel chairs at the crowded bus terminal in Belgrade. Her small nylon bag was clutched tightly to her chest. The bag held everything she owned in the world, an old CV she had rewritten 100 times, a file of rough sketches drawn on pieces of paper she found on the streets, and a crumpled ticket she had guarded like treasure. Her clothes were worn out, her shoes almost falling apart, and her hair roughly packed back into a bun. But despite her ragged appearance, there was a strange glow in her eyes, the glow of hope she had saved for months. Every single coin she had begged for, every dinar people dropped into her cup while she sat at the roadside. She had refused to eat some days just so she could put money aside. Finally, she had enough to buy a one-way ticket to Dubrovnik. Lena kept glancing at the big electronic clock on the wall. The time was rushing toward 10 a.m. Her heart pounded. The interview notice had come unexpectedly the day before, a last-minute invitation from one of the biggest interior design firms on the coast. She had almost cried when she read the email at an internet cafe. It was her first real chance after so many years of rejection. She couldn't miss it. Not now. Not after all she had endured. The boarding call was announced for the luxury coach. People stood up, some pulling their designer luggage, others chatting with family on the phone. Lena followed them nervously, holding her small nylon bag like it was made of gold. She joined the line at the gate, trying to stay calm. When she reached the attendant, the woman's eyes narrowed at her appearance. "Ticket?" the attendant asked, raising a perfectly arched brow. Lena handed it over with trembling hands. The attendant looked at the ticket, then at Lena's torn shoes, then back at the pass. "Where is your luggage?" "This is all I have," Lena whispered, lifting her nylon bag slightly. The attendant frowned. "Miss, are you sure you can afford this service? Where did you even get this ticket?" "I bought it," Lena said quickly, her voice shaking. "Please, I need to get to Dubrovnik today. I have an interview by noon. Please." But the attendant's face turned cold. She looked Lena up and down with disgust and shook her head. "I'm sorry, but you cannot board this coach. This is not a local stop. We cannot allow just anyone." "Please don't do this to me," Lena begged, her eyes filling with tears. "I worked hard for this ticket. Please." The people in line started staring. Some whispered, some sneered. A man in a suit shook his head and muttered, "These are the kind of people who embarrass themselves." Lena's chest tightened. She felt the world closing in on her. The attendant stepped aside and motioned for security. "Escort this woman out." Lena's knees felt weak. Her chance, her only chance, was slipping away. She wanted to scream, to fight, but the shame weighed her down. Then, just as the security guard moved forward, a deep voice cut through the noise. "Wait." Everyone turned. From the priority line, a tall man in an expensive linen shirt and trousers walked forward. His presence was commanding, his face sharp yet kind. His watch gleamed, his shoes were polished, but it was his calm confidence that silenced the crowd. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked the attendant, his tone polite but firm. "This woman," the attendant said with a scoff. "Claims she has a ticket, but look at her. She can't possibly." "She has a ticket," the man interrupted, taking it from Lena's trembling hand and glancing at it. "And it's valid. So, what exactly is the problem?" The attendant faltered. "Sir, it's just that, she doesn't look like she belongs here." "Because her clothes are worn?" the man finished, his eyes narrowing. The attendant shifted uncomfortably. "Well, yes." A silence fell. Lena stared at the man, her tears threatening to fall. Why was he standing up for her? The man sighed and turned to Lena. "Come with me." But the attendant quickly stepped forward. "Sir, priority passengers are not allowed to bring." The man cut her off again. "If she cannot board this coach, then neither will I." Gasps filled the air. Everyone knew who he was now. Nicholas Petrovich, billionaire hotelier and designer, the owner of Adriatic Designs, and one of the most influential men on the coast. His face was often in magazines. Without another word, Nicholas pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and said calmly, "Prepare the car. We leave now." The attendant froze. The security guard stepped back. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Nicholas gently guided Lena away from the gate. Lena could barely breathe. She walked beside him like a shadow, her mind spinning. A private car. Who was this man? Why would he do this for her? Minutes later, they were seated in a luxurious sedan speeding towards the coast. Lena sat stiffly, her nylon bag clutched on her lap, afraid to touch the creamy leather seats. Nicholas sat across from her, studying her quietly. "So," he said finally. "Where are you going in such a hurry?" Lena swallowed hard. "Dubrovnik. I have an interview at noon." "An interview?" Nicholas leaned forward with interest. "With which firm?" She hesitated, then whispered. "Adriatic Designs." Nicholas raised his brows slightly but said nothing. "And what position are you applying for?" "Junior designer," Lena said, her voice trembling. I studied design. I used to sketch. I still do, but..." Her words broke and tears welled up in her eyes. "Life hasn't been kind." Nicholas's voice softened. "Tell me." And so she told him. She told him about Marco, who had once been her whole world, how he grew cold, cheated openly, and threw her out one rainy night when she was pregnant, choosing another woman over her. How she had begged him for mercy, but he slammed the door in her face. How she lost the pregnancy days later because of the stress. With no family, no home, and no money, Lena had been forced onto the streets. She begged to survive, slept in doorways, ate scraps. Yet even there she clung to her dreams. She drew rooms and furniture in the dust, on old papers, on napkins strangers dropped. Her hands never forgot how to create. As she spoke, tears slid down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly, ashamed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know why I'm telling you all this." Nicholas reached across and gently took the file from her nylon bag. He opened it and began to look through her sketches. The silence stretched as he turned page after page. His eyes narrowed, his lips pressed together. "These are good," he said finally, lifting his gaze to hers. "Very good." Lena blinked in surprise. You think so?" "I know so," Nicholas said simply. "I'm in this business. I know talent when I see it. And you, Lena, you are talented." Lena covered her mouth with her hands, her chest tightening with a mixture of disbelief and hope. For so long, nobody had seen her. Nobody had believed in her. And now, this stranger was saying the words she had longed to hear. As the car sped south along the coastal road, Lena stared out the window, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, the world didn't look so dark. For the first time, she dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, her story was not over yet. The car pulled up not at a glittering corporate tower, but in front of a charming boutique nestled in a Dubrovnik side street, its stone walls draped with bougainvillea. "First," Nicholas said, his tone leaving no room for argument, "we ensure you walk into that interview feeling like the designer you are, not the survivor you've had to be." Lena's protest died in her throat. Inside, under the attentive eye of a personal stylist Nicholas had summoned, the ragged clothes were replaced by a sleek, navy blue trouser suit and a soft silk blouse. As she stared at her reflection, a poised, professional woman staring back, her eyes welled up. Nicholas appeared behind her in the mirror. "This is who you've always been, Lena," he said quietly. "The world just lost sight of it for a while." At the offices of Adriatic Designs, a stunningly renovated stone building overlooking the Adriatic Sea, Nicholas gave her a final, steadying look. You'll face the panel alone. This is your moment. He handed her the portfolio containing her precious sketches. Show them. The interview room held 3 senior designers. Their initial, polite skepticism was palpable. But as Lena began to speak about her designs, a community space that used reclaimed wood and natural light to create warmth, a compact living solution for urban dwellers, her passion ignited. When they gave her a brief for a waterfront cafe, her hand flew across the paper, translating concept into form with an intuitive understanding of space and flow. The room grew quiet, then filled with murmurs of approval. An hour later, she walked out, her appointment letter clutched in a hand that would not stop trembling. She had done it. Nicholas was waiting in the sun-drenched courtyard. He didn't need to ask, the radiant, disbelieving joy on her face was answer enough. I knew you would, he said, a genuine smile gracing his features for the first time. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Lena's talent, once a hidden ember, blazed in the professional environment. Her fresh perspective, as it was dubbed in an industry blog, became an asset. The colleagues who had initially whispered about Nicholas's charity case now sought her opinion. He remained a constant, steady presence, bringing her coffee during late nights, discussing projects with a respectful, collaborative air, his belief in her a quiet fortress. One evening, as they walked along the ancient city walls, the sea crashing below, Lena finally voiced the fear that had been gnawing at her. Nicholas, why? Why did you help me? Why are you still helping me? The car pulled up not at a glittering corporate tower, but in front of a charming boutique nestled in a Dubrovnik side street, its stone walls draped with bougainvillea. First, Nicholas said, his tone leaving no room for argument, we ensure you walk into that interview feeling like the designer you are, not the survivor you've had to be. Lena's protest died in her throat. Inside, under the attentive eye of a personal stylist Nicholas had summoned, the ragged clothes were replaced by a sleek, navy blue trouser suit and a soft silk blouse. As she stared at her reflection, a poised, professional woman staring back, her eyes welled up. Nicholas appeared behind her in the mirror. This is who you've always been, Lena, he said quietly. The world just lost sight of it for a while. At the offices of Adriatic Designs, a stunningly renovated stone building overlooking the Adriatic Sea, Nicholas gave her a final, steadying look. You'll face the panel alone. This is your moment. He handed her the portfolio containing her precious sketches. Show them. The interview room held 3 senior designers. Their initial, polite skepticism was palpable. But as Lena began to speak about her designs, a community space that used reclaimed wood and natural light to create warmth, a compact living solution for urban dwellers, her passion ignited. When they gave her a brief for a waterfront cafe, her hand flew across the paper, translating concept into form with an intuitive understanding of space and flow. The room grew quiet, then filled with murmurs of approval. An hour later, she walked out, her appointment letter clutched in a hand that would not stop trembling. She had done it. Nicholas was waiting in the sun-drenched courtyard. He didn't need to ask, the radiant, disbelieving joy on her face was answer enough. I knew you would, he said, a genuine smile gracing his features for the first time. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Lena's talent, once a hidden ember, blazed in the professional environment. Her fresh perspective, as it was dubbed in an industry blog, became an asset. The colleagues who had initially whispered about Nicholas's charity case now sought her opinion. He remained a constant, steady presence, bringing her coffee during late nights, discussing projects with a respectful, collaborative air, his belief in her a quiet fortress. One evening, as they walked along the ancient city walls, the sea crashing below, Lena finally voiced the fear that had been gnawing at her. Nicholas, why? Why did you help me? Why are you still helping me? In the profound silence that followed, under the soft glow of a street lamp, Nicholas turned to Lena, his hands gently cupping her face. It's over, he said. And she knew it was. All of it. The past was finally, truly, behind her. She rose on her toes and kissed him, not as a savior, but as her equal, her partner, her future. The kiss was a promise, sealed under the Adriatic stars. Months later, on the very rooftop where she had first presented her design for the community library, a project now under construction, Nicholas led her to a table overlooking the moonlit sea. He knelt, holding out a ring that held a single, brilliant sapphire the color of the deep sea at dusk. "Lena," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You taught me that the most resilient structures are built on a foundation of hope. Build a life with me. Be my wife." Through tears of unbridled joy, Lena laughed, the sound echoing over the water. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the city lights of Dubrovnik glittered below, each one a testament to a journey from a cold bus terminal to a warm and boundless future. Lena was no longer a woman who had been saved, she was a woman who had triumphed, and had found a love as strong and enduring as the ancient stones beneath her feet. Her story, once defined by loss, was now a beautiful design of her own. The sapphire on Lena's finger was more than a jewel, it was a compass, reorienting her world. Life began to move with a new, joyful rhythm. Her work at Adriatic Designs flourished, her fresh perspective now seasoned with confidence. She led projects, her name on plans and proposals, her vision shaping real spaces that would house real lives. The library, her first major project, became a symbol of her own rebirth, a place of light and shelter, rising from the dust of her past. Nicholas integrated into her life not as a benefactor, but as a foundation. Their love was a quiet, sturdy thing, built on mutual respect and the shared language of design. Evenings were spent sketching together at his large oak table, the scent of coffee and charcoal in the air, debating the flow of a space or the emotion a certain material could evoke. He never dismissed her ideas, he challenged them, and in doing so, made them stronger. The wedding was a small, sun-drenched affair at a secluded villa on the Dalmatian coast. There were no distant relatives or business associates, only a handful of close friends and colleagues who had become family. Lena wore a simple, elegant dress the color of sea foam, her hair loose and flowing. As she walked towards Nicholas, who waited under a canopy of olive trees, she didn't feel like she was in a dream. She felt more present than she ever had, every scent of rosemary and salt air, every note of the string quartet, every tear in the eyes of her friends was vividly, beautifully real. Nicholas's vows were not grand promises, but quiet declarations. "I promise to always see the architect in you, even when you forget her. I promise to build a life with you where you feel safe to create, to be, to become." Lena's voice was steady, her eyes locked on his. "You saw a person when the world saw a problem. You handed me the tools and trusted me to build myself back up. I promise to stand by you, to create with you, and to love you with the same fierce belief you have always shown me." Their life together settled into a profound and contented partnership. They traveled, finding inspiration in the minimalist lines of Japanese architecture and the vibrant chaos of Moroccan souks. They bought a old, neglected stone house on a cliffside and began the slow, joyful process of restoring it together, their blueprints a tangled mix of both their handwriting. A year after the wedding, Lena discovered she was pregnant. This time, the news was met not with terror, but with a joy so profound it was almost frightening. Nicholas held her, his own eyes shimmering, and whispered, "Our greatest collaboration yet." Their daughter, Anna, was born on a calm spring morning, her first cry mingling with the sound of seagulls outside the hospital window. She had Nicholas's dark, thoughtful eyes and Lena's determined mouth. Holding her, Lena felt the last, hidden shard of her past, the grief for the child she had lost, finally dissolve, soothed by the warm, breathing reality of the child in her arms. Nicholas was a natural father, his usual calm authority softening into a wondrous tenderness in the presence of his daughter. One afternoon, as the three of them sat in the garden of their cliffside home, the Adriacean spread out before them like a sheet of blue silk, Nicholas handed Lena a thick, bound book. "What's this?" she asked, balancing a sleeping Anna on her lap. "A portfolio," he said simply. She opened it. Inside were not architectural plans, but sketches, photographs, and narratives. There was the story of the library, of a young single mother who found refuge and a job there. There was the redesign of a homeless shelter, based on her intuitive understanding of dignity and space. There were her initial, ragged sketches from the streets, placed side by side with the polished final buildings they had inspired. "It's your work, Lena," Nicholas said, his voice thick with emotion. "But more than that, it's your story. I've been documenting it. I want to start a foundation in your name, the Lena Foundation, to fund design and vocational training for women rebuilding their lives, just as you did." Lena looked from the book to her husband's face, to her daughter's peaceful sleep, to the horizon where the sea met the sky. The journey from the cold bus terminal to this sun-warmed garden unspooled in her mind. It had not been a straight line. It had been a design she had drafted and redrafted, fought for, and built with her own two hands, with Nicholas steadfastly holding the light. She was no longer the woman with the nylon bag. She was Lena Petrovich, architect, wife, mother, and now, a beacon. Her story was not just about survival, but about legacy. And as she reached for her husband's hand, she knew the most beautiful chapters were yet to be drawn. The Lena Foundation began not with a gala or a press conference, but in a renovated warehouse on the outskirts of Dubrovnik. It was a space Lena herself had designed, full of light, with long tables for drafting, shelves overflowing with materials, and a small kitchen that was always stocked with coffee and pastries. The first women who walked through the door, their postures a familiar blend of defiance and fragility, saw a version of themselves in Lena's steady gaze. She didn't offer pity, she offered a T-square and a challenge. Her own story became her most powerful teaching tool. She didn't hide the darkness. She spoke of the cold streets, the gnawing hunger, the feeling of being invisible. And then she would hold up one of her old, crumpled sketches. "This was drawn on a piece of cardboard I found in a bin," she'd say, her voice clear and strong. "The dream doesn't care about the paper it's drawn on. It only cares that you draw it." Nicholas handled the business and funding, but the vision was unequivocally Lena's. She created a program that was part design school, part therapy, and wholly practical. The women learned AutoCAD alongside carpentry, color theory alongside financial literacy. They worked on real projects, designing a community garden for a local school, refurbishing the waiting room of a women's clinic. With each completed project, a little more of their broken confidence was restored, piece by piece, like a beautiful mosaic. One of her first students, a quiet woman named Yelena who had fled an abusive marriage, designed a series of clever, space-saving furniture for small apartments. Lena, seeing the raw brilliance in it, brought the designs to Nicholas. A year later, Adriatic Designs launched a new, affordable furniture line with Yelena as the lead designer. The story made the news, and the foundation was inundated with applications. Lena's mission was becoming a movement. At home, life was a joyful, chaotic blend of family and creativity. Their daughter, Anna, grew into a spirited toddler with a fascination for blocks and a seemingly innate ability to find the one permanent marker left unsupervised. Their cliffside home was filled with the evidence of a life richly lived, a half-finished model of a bridge on the dining table, Anna's crayon masterpieces taped to the stone walls, the smell of Nicholas's espresso mingling with the sea air. One evening, as they watched Anna trying to help in the garden, her tiny hands patting soil around a seedling with immense seriousness, Nicholas slipped his arm around Lena's waist. "You know," he said softly, "I thought I was saving you that day at the bus terminal." Lena leaned her head against his shoulder, watching their daughter. "You were," she said. "You gave me a chance." "No," he corrected, his voice full of a quiet awe he still felt years later. "I was the one who was saved. You saved me from a life of predictable success. You reminded me what it's all for. To create, to build, to leave something beautiful and good behind." Their life was not without its challenges. There were demanding clients, foundation funding crises, and the occasional sleepless night with a sick child. But these were the normal stresses of a full life, not the existential terrors of the past. They faced them together, a team. Years flowed into one another. Anna started school. The Lena Foundation expanded to 2 other cities. Lena was invited to speak at international conferences, not as a sob story, but as an innovator in social design. She stood on stages, poised and powerful, her story a testament to human resilience. On the 10th anniversary of the foundation, they held a celebration at the original warehouse, now bustling and vibrant. Dozens of women, now designers, architects, entrepreneurs, mothers, stood as living testaments to its success. Yelena, now a confident business owner, presented Lena with a gift, a beautiful leather-bound book filled with letters and photos from every woman the foundation had helped. That night, back in their home, Lena sat on their terrace overlooking the moonlit sea, the book open on her lap. Nicholas joined her, handing her a glass of wine. "Are you happy?" he asked, the simple question containing a universe of shared history. Lena looked out at the dark, endless water, then down at the book, filled with the light of so many reclaimed lives. She thought of the cold terminal, the feel of the nylon bag under her fingers, the terrifying, stubborn hope that had kept her going. She turned to Nicholas, her eyes shining with unshed tears, not of sorrow, but of profound, overflowing gratitude. "I am complete," she said. And she was. The ragged edges of her past had not been erased, but masterfully incorporated into the whole, like kintsugi, making the final design more complex, more beautiful, and infinitely stronger. The girl from the streets was gone, not forgotten, but fully integrated into the woman, the architect, the wife, the mother, the beacon. Her life was no longer a story of survival, but a masterpiece of her own creation.